All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Forging Brains podcast. I'm your host, Riley Kirkpatrick, with my co-host here, Gavin Cooper. Today, we got a real special guest for you guys. We got Mr. Bob Pethick with us. Thank you, Bob, for taking some time out of your very busy schedule. We appreciate you being on here.
Happy to be here. I've enjoyed your podcast driving back from Wellington to Ocala. That 4-hour drive goes by quick listening to you guys.
That's cool to hear.
It's been great.
That's quite a drive.
It is.
So what does your shoeing business look like right now, Bob?
Well, I'm kind of semi-retired, which is what I tell people, but I'm still shoeing way too many horses.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'd like to cut back, but it's not easy.
Yeah, I think everybody would like to do less work, and that would be kind of a good deal.
Yeah.
That'd be great. So you technically live in New Jersey, correct?
I've lived in New Jersey for 50 years.
For 50 years. All right.
Yeah. I moved here in 74.
Where did you live before that?
I lived on Long Island, which is where I started shoeing horses.
Oh, really?
Long Island, that's New York?
Long Island, New York, yeah. It was out further east on the island, about 60 miles from New York City.
Oh, okay. So not smack dab in the city.
No. It's actually further from New York City than I am now. I'm only about 35 miles directly west of New York now.
Is it that just as a crow fly type deal, not quite as a how long it takes to drive
as a crow fly.
Yeah.
So what got you to shoeing horses around that part of the world?
Well, I grew up loving horses, and as soon as I moved to Long Island when I was 12 years old. My dad got relocated. He was the manager of missile systems for air-to-air and air-to-ground missiles.
Really?
And, yeah, he got transferred out there, and as soon as I got there, I knew nobody because I grew up in Pennsylvania, and had all my friends there, and I got involved with horses like the day I set foot on Long Island.
Hey guys, just want to talk about Yukon Forge. If you listened to the last episode, you heard that John McNerney and Jim Poor made a deal where John is going to be making the driving hammers from Flatland Forge now, which is pretty damn cool. So the process is still going to be the same, and the hammers are going to be made the same, but for a limited time only, there's going to be a special collab until hammers run out that say Yukon Forge on one side and have the Jim Poor Flatland Forge steel or a stamp on the other side. So to order those, go to www.yukonforge.com and use code BRAINS. Get you 10% off and try to get yourself a cool hammer. Yukon Forge also has any other kind of tool that you could ever need. He has the propane nut, which makes for ease of tightening your propane regulator and the propane bottles. He's got rounding hammers, clipping hammers, and hoof knives. His hoof knives are some of the sharpest I've ever used, and they last a good long time. So can't also forget about tongs. He's got lots of tongs as well. So head over to www.yukonforge.com, use code BRAINS, get yourself some savings, and lets us know that you guys are supporting the show. Thanks. Let's get into it.
And you wouldn't think, when you think of Long Island, like I wouldn't think of like horses.
Well, Long Island, there's a lot of horses on Long Island. Out in the Hamptons. Back then, of course, this was, 60-some years ago. There were potato farms and sod farms and horses. I mean, it was not built up like it is today.
Okay.
That part makes sense.
Yeah. And so was it more of like backyard type horses at that time?
No, there were show horses. I mean, I was into quarter horses at the time.
Okay.
And, there were show barns, and I worked in a show barn. I mean, I started cleaning stalls and worked my way up. Started riding people's horses and just kind of went from there.
And just like, obviously, you probably saw the farrier working quite a bit.
I did. When I was, I actually bought my first horse when I was 12 years old and didn't tell my folks for like 6 months.
Really?
What?
I was cleaning stalls after school and delivering papers in the morning before I went to school, and I was making like $80 a week, which was a lot of money in, back in 1968.
Yeah,
In fact,
for a 12-year-old
my
too.
mom was a bank manager at the time, and she made $80 a week.
Damn.
She had a little bit more bills to pay than you did at the time.
Well, yeah, my dad took care of the bills really, but
Yeah.
my mom went back to work right around that time, and we were all in school, so you know how
It
it
was pretty
goes.
easy though as a kid to pile up some money pretty quickly, and no one really noticed how
Yeah,
much you were
I
spending.
was pretty good at it. Yeah, and I got a good deal on board because I was cleaning 27 stalls after school. So that's
That
Damn.
is great.
Were were your parents upset when they found out you bought a horse?
no, no, they weren't upset. I was paying for it myself, so it didn't really matter. I've been pretty much self-supportive since I was like 12 years old.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I figured that would be the reaction, like if you were the one that bought the horse at 12 years old, being like, instead
Yeah,
of, Mom, Dad, can I have a horse? Can I have a horse? But you're already maintaining it.
yeah. So yeah, they didn't have much of a choice in the matter. And like I said, I was taking care of it, so it was fine.
No, I'm sure if
Wow.
anything, like my kid's still pretty young, but if she showed up and told me that she's had a horse for this long without, you're like, pretty proud little moment. You're like, man,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I think they were pretty proud of me, but anyway, I really did not plan on being a farrier. I really wanted to be a horse trainer, and I worked for a bunch of trainers. I rode a bunch of people's horses and showed them, and you know, did that. And when I was 16, I ran into T.J. Jones, who ended up in well, he's retired now, but he was in Wellington, Florida, Palm Beach Farrier Service. And he was shoeing in the barn, and he needed help. I wanted to learn something about feet because I figured as a trainer I should know something, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he asked me, well, can you pull shoes? And I said, oh, yeah, of course. I had no freaking clue. But he got me under a bunch of horses, and, we shot a pile of horses. Those guys back then, we did, 15, 16 horses a day every day. I mean, that's just the way it was.
It's unreal.
that's a pile of horses.
Yeah.
But you were in a barn that had 27 head of horses in it, so it's not too hard to shoe that many in one day in a barn. Like if most of the
No,
barns
no,
were that big.
yeah, we would spend all day in one place with two horses, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
kind of do
maxed
the
up
same
pretty
thing
easy.
today. It's not much different.
So was that your training was with TJ?
My original training with TJ, I worked, over 3 years, I worked with 7 different guys.
Okay.
And I moved to New Jersey when I was 19 as a farrier. And the reason I moved here was because the United States Equestrian Team headquarters is located there, which is right down the street from my house. So
Oh.
I wanted to shoe the best horses, and this is where I ended up.
You had that laid out from day one that you wanted to shoe the best horses?
Yeah, pretty much. I had two goals. I wanted to win the North American Challenge Cup convention, and
Uh-huh.
shoe the better horses. So
And how old were you when you started working with TJ then?
I was 16.
16? Yeah, so pretty early start.
Yes.
And
So within 3 years, you were pretty ready.
Believe me, I did not know much of the industry. It was kind of a different thing here in New Jersey because I came to New Jersey and everything was shot hot with clips and turned heel cocks. Anything that went over a fence had turned heel cocks behind. I was
Really?
clueless in the fire. And the guys that I worked for, one of the only guys on Long Island that put clips on, always told me, well, come in at 7 o'clock on Wednesday morning and we'll draw some clips. I'm like, yeah, great, I'll be there. So I showed up at 6:45 and I get there and he's not there yet, but there's a pile of shoes, in front of the anvil. Oh, I had time last night, I clipped them up. He never did show clip shoes. That's how it was back then. It was it's not like today where people are willing to share knowledge. I mean, it was tough. I mean, guys wouldn't even work in front of each other.
Share knowledge too, but it's like just that is a very interesting deal because today you would share how to drill and tap, right? That would be the thing you would share, and like even if you didn't share it, the guy's going to get to find out how to do it pretty relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But how to forge calkins on the hind end of all these horses, like that's a
Well,
pretty niche
you know
thing.
what I ended up doing was I actually went to a standardbred track and learned how to make bar shoes and draw clips and turn heels and do all that kind of stuff. I went to
Wow.
I went to Roosevelt Racetrack on Long Island.
And who was it there that showed you?
Oh, there were probably three farriers there that were willing to help me and show me.
Oh, that's pretty
Made
cool.
friends with them, hung out, watched them shoe horses, and that's how I learned.
Wow.
Man, that's pretty dang cool. And so were you were into forging pretty relatively quickly then in your career?
Well, that's the other thing is back in this. Well, I moved here in '74. The only shoes that were available were Broncos. They were either satellites or regular diamond Broncos, or Izumi Ready-Mades, or Baker shoes. And Baker made a crease shoe, and they made a flat punch shoe, or plain stamp shoe, and they were awful.
Yeah.
So we had to make all our wide web shoes. We had to make aluminum shoes. We had to make all our bar shoes. So I, got pretty savvy in the fire pretty quick, because otherwise I was not going to survive in New Jersey. And these guys all work in fire here.
Is that like Standardbred track? Is that still there? And like, is there still guys that just work there all the time?
Roosevelt Racetrack is now Roosevelt Mall, in the same place where the racetrack was.
Shit.
Yeah, Standardbred business is, it's gone.
Dang. Yeah, I was just wondering if that still was kind of a thing that kept going on, nowadays. But no.
No, not really. I mean, there are some active Standardbred tracks, but not many.
When you moved to New Jersey, did you just set the place on fire, or how long did it take to get your foot in the door?
I moved here at a really good time. Steve Huber was shoeing a lot of horses in the area, and he actually was semi-retired or retiring, and moved up to Trumansburg, New York. So I was able to pick up a bunch of his work. But I had more work than I could do in about 6 months from the time I got here. Because the other guys that were here were either busy or were too lazy to get the work. I walked into it. One of the first accounts I got in New Jersey was a 55-horse account. And I walked in, introduced myself, saying, "Hey, I'm new in the area. If you need any horses shot or you know somebody looking." And he goes, "You have time to do a couple today?" Sure, okay. And I ended up with that account. I still shoot for that account today, 50 years later.
No way.
That owner is long gone. And his children are gone also. I still,
wow.
It was right around my age. That was his, right-hand person. Still has a farm today, and I still shoot the horses. So
that's incredible.
I've had some accounts for a while.
Well, not even just that, just walking in.
Yeah, that's
just walking in.
Like I said, I walked in at the right time.
Yeah.
And I had a quarter horse account also that I picked up because they knew me from showing quarter horses and heard that I moved to New Jersey and called me and asked me to take the account. And that was a 70-horse account. So
Jeepers.
I had plenty of work really quickly.
What would you say would be like a good tip to maintain those relationships for 50 plus years? And like, were there issues along the road that, where you were close to getting fired maybe, or
no, I always got along with my clients pretty well. I'm not, I mean, I can growl at people and get a little, more so now as I've gotten older. Most people are afraid to call me, to tell me they have a shoe off because I'll say, "Hey, when you buy it, I'll come tack it back on." But
yeah.
But no, I've always maintained good relationships with my clients.
It's probably wise.
And how? Because coming from a person that I don't maintain that great, like, man, I'm pretty easy to be like, I'm going home to the shop. I'm not doing this anymore. Like, how do you maintain those? And like, how do
you have another livelihood. You have a tool making business, right?
Yeah.
All I've ever done is shoe horses.
Yeah. But you have to be like, how do you like keep your head on your shoulders and like just work well with these people? That like, do you have any tips on that of like how to come to conclusions with them on like maybe when they're wanting you to do something and it's not great for the horse, but
I won't. If it's detrimental to the horse, I will not do it. But I'll explain why. I'm very good at explaining why I won't do something. Yeah. I mean, you guys are too young to even have gone to any of my clinics. Right? If you see
I
my clinics, everything is laid out with, pre and post pictures, pre and post radiographs, pre and post video. I'm very good at explaining stuff, and I've taken the time to try to learn as much as I possibly could. And maybe the fact that I rode so much also, I understand more so how horses move than a lot of guys who've never ridden.
Yeah.
So, I think that's helped me a lot.
That's actually something that I've heard from like your peers when they have talked about you at your clinics, is like how much you go into depth with everything and how thorough you are. But yeah, I have not been to a clinic that you've done.
Yeah.
The only thing was,
At the end of my career at this point.
yeah, the WCB that you judged a few years ago in Vegas. That's the only thing I've been that you've judged for.
Yeah.
No, and I think it is something that a lot of us slack on now, is that we pick a side really quickly. If like, oh, either we're really tuned up on our anatomy or we're tuned up on our forging, and so like it does let a weakness in on one side or the other,
Mhm.
And that is something I have also heard from like a lot of your peers, that you cover both sides very well. So I guess just that right there is gonna make the
Yeah,
conversations with clients easier.
I'm probably one of the few that have covered both sides. That's
Yeah.
accepting it like at the Hoof Care Summit and also at, at the WCB or the AFA convention or whatever, because I've done
Yeah.
both. You know,
Yeah.
I presented to the people that don't do forging, and I forged. So
Yep.
yeah, I've kind of done both. But that, all right. Um, Part of the reason that I actually learned how to forge much better than what I figured out from going to Standard Track with local guys is I think it was in '77. There was a New Jersey horseshoeing contest, right? Garden State Horseshoe Association was established in 1960. It's one of the oldest associations in the country. We're Chapter 25 of the AFA. But anyway,
Uh-huh.
they started competitions back, probably in the early '70s, something like
Okay.
that. And I went to this. I heard, oh, great, this a horseshoeing competition. Well, I never heard of such a thing. I said, this is cool. Let's go. So I went, and Bruce Daniels was, and there was a live shoeing. They had to put 4 plain stamp shoes, toe clips in front, quarter clips behind, in an hour and a half. Well, they made 5 shoes and hung one on the horse's tail. It was a thrill. I'd never seen anybody work like that.
Uh-huh.
So it impressed the hell out of me.
Yeah.
So Bruce had advanced forging seminars. He had the South Jersey School of Horseshoeing, which was down in Mullica Hill, which is almost 3 hours from here. But he had week-long seminars, advanced forging seminars, and he didn't teach them, but he brought people in from Europe to teach them. So he got, Jan Hudel from Holland, David Gully from England. I mean, there were a bunch of people from, over in Europe that would come over and teach week-long forging seminars. So that's really when I started to forge, and that's what impressed me to continue and try to learn more.
How many times do you think you went to those week-long seminars?
Oh,
Or how many of them?
every winter I went for years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was just a yearly thing that he did.
And the funny thing is the first year I made the team, Bruce was my partner.
Really?
1985, yeah.
1985.
Wow.
So,
And I was the youngest guy on the team. All the guys that were on the team were the older guys. I was a young guy. I was 30. I wasn't that, but these guys were in their 50s. The rest of them.
less than 10 years then, from when you first saw like a competition to when you made the team.
The first competition I went to was in '79, which was it was a Garden State Horseshoers competition, and I won the novice division. And then the next year I won the next division and so on. But I competed from '79 to '85 before I competed at the Nationals. And when I did,
Dang.
I won the shoeing. First year I went. I won the hunter shoes, and I was 4th in the championship forging.
It's pretty dang good. That's putting a whooping on
I
him.
got on the team. Bruce was second.
Jeez.
who all was on that team that year?
It was Bruce Daniels, Bob Scrazio, Dean Pearson, and myself.
Okay. And how, so at that time your biggest competition you've been to was just convention.
Mm-hmm.
And now had you been overseas at all before this?
No,
Or is
no.
this gonna be your
Not at all.
first time just going to England?
The biggest piece of steel I ever hit before I went over to England and Scotland was inch by 3/8. Well, we had to go to the Clydesdale shoeing competition at Clothesburn at Edwards. And I could not hit. I didn't know how to swing a hammer. I mean, I could hardly, if I hit a piece 1.25 by half back then, it would hardly move. It was like bridge steel. So I had to learn how to forge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, there was a saddlebred toe weight with a welded on clip in that championship forging class, but that was the biggest piece of steel I had ever hit.
So what did
That's
you do to
crazy.
figure that out? Like,
Bruce yelled at me a lot.
just tell you hit it harder.
Kept swinging.
Oh, hang on, something just happened here. There we go. Sorry.
Oh.
Spotify thing just showed up.
Oh, weird.
But yeah, Bruce screamed at me all summer long to hit harder. But I really didn't swing a hammer. It took me a while. But I did, by the time we got there as well.
That's pretty cool.
And that seems like a common thing of like every guy that says they made the team, they're like, I made the team and then I actually had to learn how to forge all of a sudden.
Well, yeah.
Like, and that's it, but it's funny, like, even if you were going to a forging clinic every winter for a week-long forging clinic, you probably thought you had like a pretty good hang at this, and you were probably around the same people. What happened after that where you were like, was it just the shoe list for England that you were like, man, I really gotta step this up?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a big jump from what I knew compared to what I had to know. So.
And how did you go to attacking that through that summer and keeping up with all your horses that you now had?
Well, I had good help. I had actually, yeah, I've had some really good people working for me at the time. And what's kind of funny was in 1985, Dave Duckett was dating Bob Scrazio's daughter, and he came to help us. Dave had just emigrated. He came over. I needed help. He needed work. We worked together for 3 years. He worked with me from 85 to 88. We worked together.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I learned a tremendous amount from Dave.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty good wealth of knowledge there.
And at this time, was Dave doing a bunch of like his studies and everything?
Yes. Actually, I was dating, in 1985, I was dating a veterinary surgeon that worked at Furlong's clinic, and we got through use of the X-ray equipment and stuff. So, yeah, we were working on his theories at the same time. And
Okay.
I was doing that clinic's work at the time also.
It's funny how things like that work out. Like how his study was possible just so happened with the girl that you were dating. Like it was like way more were like
it just
able to happen. It's a funny deal. But so because he was doing quite a bit of forging too, right? Like I don't know a ton about.
I know
Dave.
you guys are too young to know about Dave. Dave has won every major competition in the world. He won the National Hunter Shoeing Championship in England so many times they retired the trophy with him.
No kidding.
That's a tooled and pulled competition. We competed in that with him in '86, that following year.
Really?
Jeez.
And then I sent that picture of you. There's Doug Butler, Shayne Carter, Dave, and myself on the team. Well, we competed in the National Hunter Shoeing Championships that year.
Oh wow.
And what was the Hunter Championship?
It was putting tooled and pulled on a horse.
And that was like it was just a 4-man team and one horse.
Yeah, you shot 1 foot. Yep.
Was it flat shoeing?
I think you shot 1 foot in a specimen shoe. I think you might have had, I don't know if it was 60 minutes or 70 minutes. I don't remember. I think it was 60 minutes.
So it had to be like a pretty big help having Dave around before you went to England.
Yes, it was.
Like,
that following year, we were second to England.
Really?
So
that's.
Yeah. And the funny thing was is they were so nervous about Dave being on our team, and who the team was, I guess, that England had an A and a B team. They put in 2 teams.
Oh.
Besides all the other British teams. And
I love how they just get to do that.
Yeah, they won't accept the WCB team, but they'll put in 2 teams for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, no, it's a set number, unless it's ours.
Yeah.
It's the one way to keep the title over there, I guess.
Yeah.
Try to keep it.
That's pretty good. And so, how many times were you on the AFA team, Bob?
Well, I was on the North American Horseshoeing Team for 2 years first because that's when we represented Canada and the USA because Canada didn't have their own team.
Okay.
First year they had their own team was 87. And I judged, well, all right, I was on 85, 86. I judged in 87. I was on 88. Then I was on 92, 93, and 94 and judged again in 95. But I judged that 5 times, the AFA convention. So
Really?
Jeez.
the years that I didn't compete, I either judged. I did take a couple of years off. I shot competitively for a couple of years. I think in 89 or 90, maybe. Something like that. I
Man.
just walked away for a while and then went back to it in 92.
And it's kind of cool that you were on what like a lot of like my generation considers the golden team, right? Of you, Shayne, Jim Poor, and Jim Quick of like was or in with Craig. It was like you guys, that was kind of the golden time of like when we think of like the really good A teams, you know, for my time, it's like that's the one we think of right away. Like especially seeing ourselves. So like how did you guys feel pretty prepped as a team when you guys went over there during those times?
We worked hard at it. We did. Yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of team practices. I spent a lot of time with Shayne's. He spent time here. You know, I mean, yeah, we worked hard.
Because none of you guys were really newbies at that time, were you?
Not, well, 93 was the year that Jim, Shayne, Craig, and I were on the team. And yeah, well, I mean, I was well, first time I was on the team was 85. So that was 8 years later, yeah.
And was one of those years the years that Jim won the individual at the Stoneleigh?
He won the individual at Stoneleigh, yeah. And I was the judge. It was Alan Woodyard and I. And I made Alan come over and look at his foot because he was judging one side of the horse, I was judging the other. And we weren't allowed really to talk. All right? That's how it kind of was. Well, I asked him to come over. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, keep this foot in mind. I think this is a nice job. And, you know, I don't know I have no idea what go around it was or whatever, but I did call him over because it was the best work I'd seen all day. And he looked at it and agreed. So, of course, what I was trying to do was not say there was any favoritism, and there wasn't.
Right.
I mean, Jim
Right.
did a bang up job. I mean, it was a nice job. And he deserved to win.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
But I made the other judge look good.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of CYA, you know. You're like, hey, let's come to agreement on this, just so not later somebody come back
exactly. Well, yeah, because that's what happens, you know.
Yep.
So, you know, I have a very good memory, so I can remember feet. I can remember the first job of the day as well as the last job of the day. I've got kind of when I look at something, I can still picture it. If I think back to days I was someplace, I can remember what shirt I was wearing. You know, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
That is huge. And so, can you remember like on the anatomy side of things and stuff too? Can you remember words and stuff just as well, or like you know like paragraphs of like information that way?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Really.
I'm really good at remembering feet. I don't often go to a foot more than once for fitting shoes. So
that's definitely a time saver.
Yeah, it saves a lot of time shoeing horses.
Has it always been that way for you when you like even when you were starting? Was that one of the first things that you kind of do?
No, I fought shapes for a while, but finally once it clicked, you know, once you understood the radius changes in a foot, like I said, I very rarely go back to the amble with the shoe.
What do you think is like something that would help? Because that's kind of something that we get asked all the time is like, how do you guys see the shapes better in feet, or no, like how do you determine this radius should be this? What did you do to make that click for you?
Well, hind feet are simple, aren't they? They're all very simple.
I think so.
There's very little key changes in them, right? Front feet are a whole lot different because there's so much more weight on them, right? A lot wide and rounder or whatever. But they all have a toe radius, they have a forequarter radius, and they have a heel quarter radius. Right? You just have to put radiuses together, and if you understand distortion, you know where the heel bends are also. The side that bears more weight, the quarter bend is further forward. right? It comes closer to the front. So it's, you just have to put it all together that way. You have to understand distortion and be able to you got to be able to put that shape in your shoe at the handle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's always the hardest part.
Being able to like shape it on the horn is one thing, but I do think you pointed something out there. I just don't want anybody to miss it. If like you're understanding what the foot is way more than you're trying to like remember the shape. You're remembering what this foot is. Everything, you have a top side. You probably in your head have a top side view after looking at the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like. You see guys say that a lot on Facebook. They're like, oh, you can tell he missed here or missed here. And it's like, I think there's very few guys on Facebook that can look at the bottom of a foot and like know what the top side looks like.
I think working with Dave those 3 years when we worked together, he really helped me understand distortion in the hook capsule. And I think that's what made it clear. And that's what brought it together for me. So that all happened, back in the late 80s.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about the fine folks from World Championship Blacksmith. They just wrapped up with the season opener in Madison, Wisconsin, and have the Roadrunner Classic coming up in Edgewood, New Mexico, June 26th, and the entry deadline for that is May 31st. So I figured I'd let you guys know, so that way you can be on top of it. The sole focus is so you can become better, and putting yourself in that environment will push you to an area that you didn't even know you had within yourself. The WCB is about holding on to tried and true methods of trimming, shoemaking, and most of all, fit. The goal is always to have the horse better off in the end. The farrier to become efficient and skilled to whatever comes to their way that they can tackle. They're doing more than just putting on horseshoeing competitions. They're creating a community amongst us of the greatest hardworking folks that'll step up and help you along the way. The WCB is putting on the greatest horseshoeing contests in the world, and we personally believe here at Forge and Brains Podcast that it's important to test yourself and try to become better every day. So it's awesome to have the World Championship Blacksmiths sponsor the show. Help support them by going to their website, www.worldchampionshipblacksmiths.com, and buy some merch to show your support, and use code BRAINS for 10% off your order. It's not including contest or membership fees. We look forward to seeing you down the road.
That is understanding distortion and probably helping you a lot of like where you can go from there and what you can do today.
Well, and you're gonna give a base of support where it's lacking.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna try to make it not as asymmetrical as it is, and try to add some, a more symmetrical shape to give a base of support for the limb. And that depends on if you're fitting. If you're fitting concave or if you're fitting full and forward shoes versus being able to fit inch by 3/8, where you can give some support. So.
No, that's something that I had a really hard time when I first started like shaping shoes was I was going to shape that shoe the same no matter what the shoe was. And
people do that, yeah. They make table shoes. People make shoes for feet.
You become really tight all the time because you're like you're mimicking the shape too much.
Yep.
And I think that's like hugely something that's like I really didn't start learning to like shape a shoe to what I wanted to fit until I started trying to fit roadsters on feet. And you're like, you had to see through a lot of mess, and not a lot of mess, but just a lot of stuff, and like try to actually make this thing go on there. That is a very, very, very hard thing to do, and it's something that like I'm still not great about it, but it is something that people need to take in consideration. I feel like that you said there, like what stock they're putting on there and how that's going to fit onto that foot and help the horse.
Right.
Do you have some like key things on distortion that you think people should pay more attention to? I'm sure, I know you're pretty active on social media too, so I'm sure you see some feet that get posted a lot that you're like, man, people are doing this over and over again.
I really try to keep my mouth shut.
Now's the time. Now's the time, Bob. Let him have it. It's because I know there's like, and I'm sure there's things you've seen on mine that you're like, man, Riley always does this over and over again. I wish he would stop it. Like, it's not good.
Hey, it's a learning process. We all have to learn, And it's time.
Like, I'm sure you have some like base things though that you're kind of going for or would like to avoid.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to make horses comfortable for what they do for a living. And I've been fairly successful at it, which is why I've kept the work that I have.
Yeah, if you can keep the accounts for 50 plus years, I would say you're
Yeah.
doing something right.
Well, I've been shooting horses for 53 years now. I probably fit 400,000 shoes. I should be good at it by now, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
That's a
and
number
these,
that I've actually like thought about in my head, like trying to figure that out. How did you come up with that number just by knowing the number of horses that you've shod?
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out if you know, I,
Keep
well,
good track. Yeah.
yeah, I shoot a lot of horses. I shoot too many horses.
but you're not.
400,000.
It's a little bit more impressive, I think, when you think that you're not shoeing horses that are just going on a trail ride once a week or something like that. You're
No,
shooing
I don't
horses
have
that
any
are
horses.
like these are competitive
Yeah,
horses that are getting used
yeah,
pretty hard.
they're going around circles and rings. Yeah, a lot. Which is hard to
Yeah,
keep them sound because they're not meant to go in circles.
yeah.
Right.
Horses aren't set up or built to go in circles as much as they do. It's hard on them.
Do they use a lot of that like synthetic footing
Yes,
in a lot of the places?
almost all my horses are on synthetic footing. And that's a problem too because there's no slide.
Right.
Feet are supposed to fly when they hit the ground. They don't
Mm-hmm.
slide in synthetic footing. It's so sticky.
It's all gription.
And it's yeah, friction. There you go. And it's hard. I mean, it's there's only a little bit of soft stuff on the top, and the base is fairly hard. So
Mhm.
it's hard on them.
So,
I'll
what did you have to change any? Like, obviously, you probably did. What did you change in your shoeing
Well,
when that started coming up?
I've gone to narrower web shoes because the more on a sticky footing, the more surface area you have, the faster the foot stops. You get less slide, right?
yes.
There's a lot of people think differently about that. They put sliding plates on these horses and stuff, to try to get them to slide more. But this is not a reining horse arena. It's a very sticky, waxy footing. And
Yeah.
like I said, the more surface area you have, the quicker the foot's going to stop and not slide.
Just from like a mechanical side thought, like the more steel you have, the more the rubber's going to grab the steel. I could see the rubber having a harder time slowing down organic hoof and sole compared to steel.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that just from a mechanical side of the less steel you have on the horse, the less it's going to get grabbed by the rubber, and the horse is going to get a little more slide out of it.
Right. So I use DF Pine Selects on most of my horses. And it's kind of funny because I shoe horses heavy. I don't shoe them light. And
That's what I was wondering. Do you worry about the thickness?
Even my show, well, I put 10 millimeter shoes on them. Even my show hunters,
Yep.
that are fairly light bone. Like, well, I got Cart to make an Aught Hind DF Select, which is the size of a 1, which is about the smallest foot that I shoe. I mean, most of the horses I shoe are 3s and 4s.
Right.
There's some smaller footed ones that they're few and far between. So if you use a little bit narrower stock, I think that helps a lot. And as far as thickness goes, I don't think it makes a difference. And I really don't think weight makes as much of a difference as everybody talks about either.
It's a world that like I'm foreign to that because I haven't been around a ton of English horses or anything like that. Like I've been around some with Jason Smith and stuff, but it's like I've been more around like gaited horses where it's like weight's a good thing. We're gonna put some weight on these things. Yeah. So it's a foreign thing for me.
It's also weight and length.
Yes, yeah, it's a lot mechanics mixed in there.
Right.
Where I saw a guy the other day that was making studs for jumping horses, and he was making studs from aluminum because he was so worried about the weight. And it's like it was something I was wondering if like is it that big of a worry on these big horses?
They have a lot of bone. They're not going to know the difference between 2 or 3 ounces. No.
Yeah,
that's
what
I mean, all right. To go back up a little bit, but years ago, all our show hunters were thoroughbreds. And we put aluminum on all of them in front. Right?
Yeah.
We want even lighter trainers front. But really what we were doing is shoeing with a wider shoe, thicker shoe, and getting their soles up off the ground. Because we're a bunch of flat-footed things with like 5 millimeters of sole length.
Yeah.
So because they had more thickness and more width on the bottom of their foot. But today's warm bloods, they don't. like I said, a couple 3 ounces is not going to make a difference. I still shoe all my horses with aluminum, my show hunters, because that's what people are used to and that's what they want. And
I was
honestly,
wondering.
if I never nailed another pair of aluminum shoes on a horse, I'd be really happy.
Me too.
God knows how many aluminum shoes I've nailed on, because I've showed a lot of show hunters over the years.
I see those pictures that you always post of like
Piles of shoes.
and I've wondered like how many of them are aluminum and how many are steel in
Those
there.
are all aluminum shoes mostly. But I'm able
So
to.
a lot of times I look at them and be
able to
like, dang, those could be
you won't
reset.
see any Hines in there, just a few. Because I'm able to
Yeah.
reset the Hines, but aluminum shoes, you're not going to get a reset. You can sometimes,
Right.
but depending on what.
Yeah.
But I also rocker the toes on all my shoes, front and hind. Not an AFA,
front
not
and
an
hind.
AFA rocker, but a set toe at the back of the wing. And I think
Yeah.
that helps in the synthetic footing as well.
Okay.
It allows a little bit more slide because the very end of the middle of the shoe from the back of the web is tipped up slightly. So I think that helps a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it also.
And do you ever worry about
shoes?
Do you ever worry about the slide flays if you have to put pads or any type of thing like that onto them, or a bar shoe?
Well, I don't. I think I have, out of all the show hunters I show, I think I have 2 of them with pads on.
Okay.
They don't
Oh,
they don't
wow.
have pads.
That's really good.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Like, from what I've seen from other guys, like that sounds fairly uncommon. It seems like there's a ton of them in pads. Like I don't know why.
I have
but
a lot
you
of
see
other horses with pads, but most of my show hunters that have aluminum on don't have pads on.
Are they just living basically like in a paddock and then being ridden? They're not necessarily being turned out or anything like that? Or
So our horses get turned out here. We have lots of green, lush pasture, big fields, and they turn them all out. They get them out as much as they can. And even my horses, when they go to Florida, get turned out quite a bit.
But they're pretty nice green pastures, like you're saying, not necessarily just mud and crap.
Oh, we have lots of them.
Do you?
This year, it's done nothing but rain here since last May. I mean, it's unbelievable. I feel like in your country, right?
I was gonna say it sounds like here, man. It's just been raining nonstop. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
So on that, how much does your trimming and shoe fitting change when you go from New Jersey to Florida?
The feet get better in Florida because the mud here, we have a lot of clay in the soil. So when it rains, it stays wet for a week, or unless it's really windy, then it dries up a little bit. But it stays wet for a long time. If it rains in Florida, it'll be dry in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It can rain all night, and by afternoon, there's not a puddle anywhere. It just goes right through the sand. So my feet actually get tighter and dry up more in Florida than they do here.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And how long do those horses stay down in Florida then when they go?
Well, it used to be from December through the end of March. Now it's November through the end of May. I just finished my last 10-day trip to Florida just last week. I got back last Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
And
10 days at a time.
And I've still have horses there. I've got to go back on May 24th and do like 20 horses that are still there. Hopefully they're going to leave soon.
Let's talk about the greatest farrier supply house in the world, Wellshot. It's not every day you have a business that's invested in you and wants to do the best they can do for you. The whole crew over at Wellshot are some of the nicest folks you'll meet in this trade. The owner, John Harshbarger, does so much for us in this trade by supporting as much events as he possibly can. I see Wellshot is sponsoring so many events and can't help but think that somebody cares. Every year they host the largest free clinic in the world, put on by the World Championship Blacksmiths, by allowing us all to come and learn and try to become better. Wellshot has everything you could possibly need in your farrier practice. It'd probably take all day to list every product they provide, but whatever brand you use, they'll have it. Aside from products, they also carry all the top tools made by the best in our industry. So when you go to check out at www.wellshot.com, use code BRAINS and you'll receive a special gift in your order free of charge. Plus that helps support us at Forging Brains. Can't say enough good things about the folks at Wellshot. It still blows my mind that they can get away with $10 shipping anywhere in the continental U.S. And don't forget, they have basically every anvil that you could possibly need or want to use in supply. So go over there and check them out and use code BRAINS at checkout to help show your support. Thanks, everyone.
And so do you have pretty much a set clientele right now
I do.
No one new coming in? So you're just following these horses down there?
Yeah,
pretty much.
They're my regular clients, and I cover a couple. There's like maybe 4 horses that I cover for other guys in Wellington. Actually, they're dressage horses that I do for
okay.
Just for a couple guys.
And so this always, and you can tell me to like don't want to talk about finances or not, but you're always kind of regarded to as a very smart finance man. From all you're like Jim Poor, Jim Quicker, like, man, Bob's the finance guy. You should probably pay attention to him. And so does your business, how much you're charging them, change from when you go from New Jersey to Florida, or are you keeping it consistent throughout the year?
I keep it the same year round. These are year-round clients that I follow. I just charge the same year-round. I don't charge my. If I've got to go back, well, last summer I had to go down every month and shoe one barn of 11 horses, and they pay all my expenses. But normally I don't charge anybody expenses. I just charge the same rate. But I'm there for like 10 days. So.
Wow.
That's funny.
So do you just stay like in a hotel, or do you have like a apartment there or something? Or
Dan Hausman and I had an apartment for 8 years in Wellington, and we lost it recently because the guy who owned it was going through a divorce and needed to pay for it. So I've been staying. I've been staying in a hotel in Wellington, but I'm not in Wellington as much as I used to be. I used to have like 45 horses in Wellington and 45 horses up in the Palace. Now I'm down horses with COVID, I had to give up quite a few horses because I couldn't travel. I used to be California and shoe horses during the summer that went to Wellington during the winter. I gave those up, and I gave up some other accounts as well. So I'm shoeing less horses in Wellington. So I'm only in Wellington for like 4 days, and I'm up on a pal the rest of the time.
And when you go down to Florida, did you end up buying another shoeing rig, or do you rent one when you go down there?
I have 4 trucks and 4 trailers.
You have 4 trucks and 4 trailers?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Unreal.
And it's a certain type of truck too, isn't it? Like, are they all the same?
No, no. I have 2 dual-wheel crew cab 4-wheel drives. I have a Ford F450 that I pull my big walk-in trailer with. I've got a 4-star walker.
Okay.
And I've got another GMC K3500 that I also plow my driveway with. I have an 8.5-foot plow on it, and I use that to pull my walk-in if my other truck was down. And I have 2 Ford Raptors.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen
those
the Raptor pictures.
Ford Raptors are sweet rigs. That's
I have a white one in Florida and a black one here at home.
Nice.
Wow.
And so how do you come up with a price that you're going to charge these people for the year that you know you're going to not be losing your ass on at the end? Because I think that's a lot of horseshoers think that they're making money, and they aren't. Like when you break it down for them, they aren't really making enough money. So how did you come up with a price to be there, to know you're going to be okay?
I charge enough that I'm not worried about it.
Okay. and so have you always gone up every year in price on these people?
All right. I started shoeing horses for $12 a set and $4 for a trim.
Okay.
Jeez.
Okay. Now I charge anywhere from $350 to $400 a set and $100.
Mm-hmm.
So did I go up?
Yeah.
That's and I work with some of the same people.
and that's like a hard thing for me, is like new people, I have no problem for some reason charging them. It's the older people that I'm like, man, I gotta.
The last person that said something about a price increase, I said, "Thank you, Joe Biden." I had to get everything's gone. Horse train does too. All my supplies have gone up. Everything's gone up. My car insurance has gone up. I mean, everything's going crazy right now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So.
No, it just seems a lot of people like, and I know I'm one of them, is for some reason my horseshoeing, I have a hard time charging what I probably should be charging sometimes. And my tools, I have way less of a problem doing it because it's so black and white, that I'm like, well, this is how much it costs to run a shop, and this is how much it costs to do this. Like, so it's and a little bit of supply and demand mixed in there. But it's like, for some reason, I just have a harder time equating that out in my horseshoeing business for myself.
No, I've got, all right, I've got two Stonewell mid-sized trailers and one mini. The last one I just bought was $30,000 for the trailer.
Yeah.
And that's without an anvil, without a forge, without, belt sander attachment, without it, basically just two Baldor motors, two drill presses, and a swing out for the forge. No forge, no anvil, no attachments to no welder. I mean, I probably got $40,000 to $45,000 in each little trailer.
Quick.
So, I mean, when you're driving, a $100,000 truck, and if you got four of them, it's, you got to charge to make ends meet. How do you not?
Yeah, I mean, but even without that, you're also like your skill set's there, right? Obviously, you feel confident enough in your skill set to be know that you're worth it. That's a.
I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're all learning. I'm still learning, even 53 years into it. But I have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you kind of lay down your AFT resume, and that's a pretty decent one right there. Like, why you should be charging and what you should be charging.
Well, I've worked for 2 different vet clinics in this area, did their vet work, and I've spoken at the AAP in a scientific program, and a bunch of times at the Hoof Care Summit, at the KFA convention, given all kinds of clinics and lectures. So I have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing.
And that's something else to say. It seems like you've always kept helpers around, and you've always
my help stays
invested a lot of time in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to see them do well, and I want them to help me. So it all works out.
And we probably get the most messages from new people starting out of like what they should do and how they should learn. We mostly get a lot of questions about forging, of like what they should be trying. Do you have any advice to these people that are trying to learn to make basic plain stamp shoes to go on to horses?
Yeah, get somebody that can help you and spend a lot of time with the fire. This is what we do.
That's what we always
Getting
tell them.
harder and harder.
Well, that's what it is. You got to find somebody in your area that is willing to help you, and go spend as much time as you can with them.
Yep.
It's getting harder and harder,
Yeah.
to be able to have somebody do that, and then just with the cost of everything, they want to be paid a full-time wage when they can't necessarily do a full-time wage worth of work.
I've always tried, if somebody was interested in competing that work with me, I spend as much time in the shop with them as I can, because I think that's really important, and that's what makes them who they are. I mean, Jessica Melvin, worked with me for 8 years, and she's still an associate. So this has been going on now for 12 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and she covers for me when I'm in Florida, and I cover for her when she travels and competes.
Yeah. She is very handy.
Yeah.
She is.
She is.
And it's Jessica's one of those people that just has such a strong underlying of the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Like I traveled to Andrew Nielsen's shop quite a bit, and so I got to spend time around Jessica quite a bit. And it was always like every time I'd watch her forge and you'd ask her why she was doing something, she could fully explain it to you, and you'd learn something from her each time. So that's what it is like. Proof is in the pudding that you've obviously done a pretty good job with your apprentices.
Yeah, I tried to instill the basics in them, because it all comes down to basics, always. It doesn't matter if you're shoeing a backyard pony or an Olympic horse, or you're shoeing in, if you're competing in a state competition or the world championships. It's all basics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it comes.
What are some of the basics to you? Like, what are some of the flat forward, basics covered?
The number, there's a lot. It really depends on the shoe, but nailability is number one. If you can't nail a shoe on, what good is it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your nail hole placement is 15. That's got to be correct.
Yep.
The shape has to be correct. It's got to look like a foot.
Yes. Yep.
And then the different forging aspects that go into each shoe. But, like I said, basics are basics. It's not, It's what
No,
we're.
it's nothing too far out there.
It's no, it's not. It's not at all. No, look at
Yeah.
let's go to any competition and look at the shoes on the table. It always comes down to basics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. To be nailed up.
Even at the top end of the table, something that will be wrong with it will be something like, oh, it wasn't quite as flat as the other one, or a nail hole wasn't as snappy as the other one. You know, like it wasn't as clicky. It's never anything too crazy. It doesn't seem like, but it's easy to look over that, and it's easy, especially I think nowadays, to like want something right away and want some like little cheat code of how to do something that's really easy.
Right.
Where it's when you just tell people it's the basics, they're like, you see them be bummed.
You say, oh, it's the basics, but you know what the basics are, is
Yeah.
because you've learned that, and this is all part of it, right? Is learning the basics.
Oh,
Being able
exactly.
to see it. Because if you can't see it, you can't do it.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think that is something that's like, obviously you have it where you can see things very easy.
Mhm.
It's a big
And
help.
Work at it, but yeah.
yeah, where I think that's a lot, like a lot of people don't have it, and I don't think they're working at it very much.
No, probably not. They didn't spend the time to really learn. I mean, I was an AFA examiner for 24 years. I looked at a lot of feet, besides
Yeah.
all the judging that I've done. So,
It is a lot of feet
yeah.
to see.
And so you've done a ton of judging, and something that me and Gavin have to do this year coming up is we have to judge the WCB, and this will be Gavin's first time judging. I've gotten to judge some things before, but it's still something that's very hard. Of like, how do you come up with what number is what? So when you come up to a trim,
It's easy.
Okay.
I'm ready.
It's simple. All right. What I can do is an 8. Wow me, it's above that. Disappoint me, it's below that. Then you start deducting points. That's the easiest way for me.
What I can do is an 8.
Yeah.
Wow me, it's above it.
Yeah.
Disappoint me below it.
Yeah.
That's
a good way to look.
That's good. I've never heard anybody put it that way, but
It gives you a baseline.
it does.
Now you know now, when you look at a trim, I can do that. Can I? Or what happened?
Yeah.
Or wow, this is really nice. Well, it's got a score above an 8. If it's really nice, well, you can do, right?
And I almost think sometimes scoring lately, at least from like my scores, is a little nice. Like it's kind of polite. Like an 8.5 or an 8.7 isn't that extraordinary right now. But it's like if you give somebody a 7.8, they're like, well, that's bad. Where it's like sometimes I'm wanting to write down a 5, and it's like you just can't do it sometimes.
Something to think about when you're judging with someone else, right? If you have like at the World Horseshoeing Classic, right? We have 3 judges, right?
Mm-hmm.
If everybody there judged between 7 and 9, you're gonna have a lot of ties at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you see a 4.8, give it a 4.8. I mean, I have judged anywhere from 4.8 to 9.2.
Yeah, that's
because and that's honestly at the World Horseshoeing Classic that there are people that shouldn't be there, and they deserve to be scored that. And it's not personal, but it's a way to keep things the way they're supposed to be and not have a lot of ties.
Because it's not really helping anybody out.
No, if you're only
helping anybody out, if you're just giving them a mediocre score.
If you're only scoring between 2 points and you got 2 or 3 judges, it's going to be a mess.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you really need to score them according to what you really feel. Not, don't try not to hurt anybody's feelings. I mean,
right.
There's going to be people that hate you at the end of the day, or what?
They all do.
You're in that position to be hated, right?
Yeah. It is one of the worst parts about judging is everybody's judging you way more than you're judging them. Like they're just all bummed out at the end of the day.
I'm sure they think I'm a prick or whatever, but it's not that. It's just I'm just trying to be fair, And
nothing personal.
Yeah, it's not personal at all, not in the least. And honestly, if you're scoring below a 7, you need to work.
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Yeah. No, and you kind of think you need that reality check every once in a while that what you need to work on. So on like a level of like, okay, say, do you hit unlevel harder than you hit, say, chattery knife work? Or like, how do you know when you're going to deduct a whole point compared to just deducting a half a point on them?
Well, there's varying degrees of error.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just have to, like I said, with being an examiner for 24 years, you get really familiar with score sheets and how to score stuff, and it just makes it easier in that respect because I've done so much of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and you can't lose sight. You've got to really remember what you gave to other, how you scored other feet, and remember the best foot of the day and the worst foot of the day,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. No, it is something that I catch myself doing when I'm judging is like going back to the score sheet and adjusting some of them where I'm like, okay, what did I give this guy? Because what I just saw was way better, or you know what I mean, or like way worse.
Well,
So
if
it's
you,
like,
yeah, but like I said, if you use that magic number 8 of what you can do, it makes it a lot easier. It really
yeah,
does. You don't have to second guess yourself. You'll know as soon as you put the foot on or look at the shoe.
no, that's a
I
really
see.
good system that I haven't heard put out there. And so we'll stay on the judging here for a little bit of when you're putting together, say, a shoe list for a contest.
Mhm.
What are some considerations you bring in on how to choose the shoes for the list?
Everybody tries to get a little tricky with something different, because there's been so many shoes made over the years, especially in my career. I mean, I've seen so many specimen shoes and so many different shoes that we've had to make. I mean, that's why I came up with that Coke bottle, the 5 clip.
I was just
Usually
thinking about
practice
that
shoe.
one.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the suspensory shoe being cut out. And I really got that idea from the Toadster. If you remember seeing the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Toadster cut out, that's
I
where I
like
got
that
the
shoe.
idea to cut that out and make the suspensory shoe. Yeah, it's just
Oh,
odd to try to do something a little bit different.
Yeah. It's something, and it's something that we've been trying to keep in mind. It's like, of course, we want to do something a little bit different, something kind of interesting, but you're still trying to like keep it within the realm of possibilities and judgeable.
Yeah.
Where
have some
that's
distinctions.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they still have to make what you made,
Yeah.
no matter what it is. So it's pretty easy to judge because you're judging it against your own. Right? It's that
Yeah.
magic.
True.
It's that magic 8 thing.
Yeah, if you put it as an 8, it's a lot more than if you put it as like, okay, this is what you want to match completely.
Right.
Because I think that's kind of a hard thing sometimes is like, okay, well this guy matched the specimen, but like this shoe is possibly better than the specimen.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so it's a kind of a
That
time
wow.
where you have to
That
like,
that's a wow. That wows you. So you can
yeah,
give them a higher score.
yeah,
But yeah, I think just thinking of trying to come up with a number just by looking at feet or looking at shoes is really difficult. But if you add that 8 thing, it helps.
no, I think that is good. It gives you a baseline of where to start from,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah.
And it's probably especially nice when you can see the feet before they trim them, so you know what they're starting with. It's kind of
Absolutely.
where they go.
Yeah. And you can write, I always write notes on the score sheet. If I saw something I didn't, thought was going to be difficult or more difficult or whatever, like
Oh,
Stanton
like
Warren's club
beforehand.
foot with a hole in the toe,
Yeah,
in Vegas that time.
yeah,
Yeah.
He says, "What am I supposed to do with this?" I said, "You got a bad draw." I mean,
yeah,
I said, "What would you do with it at home?" I said, "Just do the same thing. That's all you can do."
yeah.
And he kept bugging me. He's like, "Well, what would you do?" I'm like, "Doesn't matter what I would do. Just
What do
shoe
you
it the
do?
way you would shoe it. Same as if it was at home."
I think a lot of people get caught up in that at a competition. And I like to speak from like experience here. I'm worrying too much about what the judge is wanting me to do compared to just trying to do a good job of what you
Yeah, the only
see.
thing I would say, well, I mean, all right, you can keep a little book on judges and what they like and what they don't like if you're that observant that you can tell. Notice, especially in the live shoeing when you're shoeing feet, look at how they sight the foot. Watch them and sight the foot the same way they do, because otherwise, if they pull way out to the side, it's going to, be high in the inside if you level it the way you normally level it. So,
Yeah.
pay attention to how they sight feet. That helps a bunch.
Our great friends over at Farrier Box have been supporting us on Forging Brains for a while now. Since the time that they have sponsored the show, we have received many great products that I wouldn't have thought about buying, or because I was being a tight ass. But they were sent to me in their subscription box, and now I use those products in my day-to-day practice. Each box is sent bi-monthly, and in those boxes is an array of the top tools and products that have been tested by the greats in our industry. So go to www.farrierbox.com and use code BRAINS for 25% off your first month's order. You won't be disappointed, I'll tell you that.
Oh, that's a really good advice. And that's another thing that I feel like a lot of people get lost in competition is just in the trim in general. Like, I feel guys either go from one extreme to the other. Like, they either have way too much knife work going on in there or not nearly enough.
Well, yeah, and that's something that should be asked in the judges meeting. Do you want to leave sold? What do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would sold up is your friend. Don't overpair feet.
Yeah.
Clean them up,
I
but
agree.
don't overpair them.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely too something from wet weather guys are like, man, soul is valuable stuff right there. So,
Leave as much as you possibly can.
I mean,
yeah, it's like,
there were a lot of guys that were like skeletonizing the bars there for a while. There'd be this little thin bar going down because they cleaned up so much of it around it, and it was like, that doesn't do anything. That just weakens the foot anyway. Like leave good strong bars, leave sole in the foot. Keep your knife upright when you trim the frog, clean the sulcus out. Take what I tell people all the time, and actually I keep it on my phone. I send it to them, especially if people come work with me and they start, graping frogs and stuff. I show them sort of a sense of the frog with the sole peeled on it. So this is what a frog looks like underneath. You need to leave tissue on it, so it needs to look just like that, only with covering, right?
yeah.
Right.
That's keeping your knife upright, not, laying your knife over too far, cutting the tops off frogs. I hate that stuff.
Yeah.
And it makes for unhealthy feet.
Yeah. No, Jim Quick has said the same thing, that he thinks one of the biggest things that horseshoers do today bad is cut the top off of the frogs too much.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
He's like, guys are just paring these frogs down so far the horse has no support anymore. Like, it is a. On the topic of hoof knives, you make some pretty dang nice hoof knives.
Yeah, I don't make them as often as enough, and I give them away. I don't have any of my own. Yeah.
I am well aware of that situation.
Yeah, I've made hundreds of knives and given them all away.
Yeah.
When did you start getting into making your own knives?
Kelly Vermeer came out here years and years ago and had to give a knife making clinic because she was making her own hook knives back then. And she was making them out of steel from one end to the other with, for burning shoes on. Right? Had a little V on the other end for pushing on the toe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just changed from there where now I, just use 5 inches of A2 and put it in a handle.
What are some key features that you find in a hoof knife that makes it run nice?
Well, number one is being comfortable in your hand. I don't know if you've ever seen one of my hoof knives or not, but they're a wedge. They're thicker at the bottom. If you look at your hand, it's bigger on this side than on that side. So the knife is tapered. You can pull a lot harder and not strain your wrist and your fingers. The curvature in the blade, the fact that the very last 3/4 inch of the blade just tip down slightly. Otherwise, you have to cock your wrist to get into a foot.
Yeah, and that's not much fun.
The size of the hook, so you can get to the bottom of the, the sulci, right?
Mm-hmm.
Comic hairs, whatever you want to call them. But
do you find yourself having to sharpen your knives a lot during the day, like your day-to-day?
No, we have wet feet. I sharpen. I carry, really only carry 2 knives and one for cutting in my apron. But my son who works with me has 4 knives, and he's the one that cleans the feet up.
I was just about to ask, do they do all the paring?
All my help cleans the feet up. So we sharpen them in the morning before we leave. I have to sharpen 7 knives before I walk out the door in the shop. And I do
7 knives for you or
Four
just for
for
the?
him and 3 for me. And when
Okay.
I used to have 2 helpers, I was sharpening 11 or 12 knives in the morning.
Jeez Louise.
And
Putting your work out.
on your knives, do you try focusing on have a really like the flat this way?
Yeah, the
On
back
the
side needs
back,
to be totally flat, and the front side needs to be, have a radius to it.
a hollow.
Yeah, hollow ground. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Right.
that happened. Too many people try to hold the knife at too much of an angle to sharpen
Mm-hmm.
it, and you really need to keep the center of the wheel in the center of the blade, and that'll keep your knife nice.
That's what I
Yes.
was gonna ask you.
Where it's a
It's
lot easier to sharpen.
and another thing I notice a lot of guys do is this hook gets growing really, really bad.
Yeah, yeah, you got
And
to
it seems like it comes from how they're sharpening.
take. Well, as soon as the knife starts to wear out, the hooks, if you don't sharpen the hook, it's going to get longer and longer. The rest of the knife's
Snap
going to
tooth.
disappear.
So when you go through sharpening your knives, how do you sharpen them?
How do I sharpen them? Well, if they need a lot of material hogged out of them, like if somebody, like, all right, some of the girls that work for me, they only work for me 2 days a week, and they totally wreck their knives when they're not here. And I sharpen them, and they go home with sharp knives, and then they wreck them and bring them back. Well, I've got to go to a 150 grit ceramic on the wheel to get crap out of it that they've done, where they tried to sharpen it themselves and end up with this big straight edge instead of a nice hollow ground to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go to 150 grit compound and clean that up. And I've actually been using some 150 grit flap wheels. I don't know if you've seen them. They're about an inch wide.
No. So it's just like a bunch of flaps?
Yeah, it goes on
Oh,
bench.
yes.
And I'll use that especially for the backside to keep it flat.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that works really well. And I use
But
70.
so on the
compound.
other side, you're using just 150 grit compound.
Well, yes, if I have to remove a lot of
Okay.
material. Otherwise, I just use either green or white on a knife compound.
Okay. And when you're using that 150 grit, are you using that like on a sisal wheel or just cotton?
That goes on a 70 ply cotton wheel also.
Okay.
It sticks good and it works really well. We use a lot of material fast.
Yeah. And it's probably still pretty safe because I know I've taken some to like my belt grinder, you try sharpening it up. You ruin them in a hurry.
Yeah, don't do that.
You ruin them in a hurry, or the belt grinder grabs onto them and throws them on the ground for you.
Yeah.
It's a scary time when that happens.
Yeah, you do the quick check around and make sure nothing's leaking. Oh, that's the worst part.
Yeah.
So just touch up wise on like yours, you're doing every day. You're just hitting those on just a cotton wheel with a green compound.
70 ply cotton wheel with green. Well, actually, I've got 11 grinders set in my shop, but I use the 70 ply cotton wheel with the white compound first, and then I go to a soft cotton wheel with the green compound.
All right.
And
you just try hard to focus on the middle of the knife.
Keeping the wheel in the center of the blade, yeah. That's huge.
That's front and back.
Well, no, back is totally flat. The back side.
So when you're going on the back side, are you running the knife like this?
Yeah. Start at the hook and work my way out.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
if you go
that's something I'll run them this way.
But that won't keep it flat.
Yep. Then you got to go back and flatten it. And you can tell too when it's getting a little bad because the knife doesn't want to stay in the cut.
Yeah.
It's constantly trying to like dive out of the cut. And you have to like keep down pressure on it to keep it in the cut compared to a fresh flat back seems to want to stay hungry.
The guys that help me in Florida, I always have to sharpen their knives. They show up, they're like, "Can you sharpen my knives?"
It is like it's a funny thing that all of us use a knife every single day, but not all of us can sharpen one.
No, I think once you learn how to make them, you learn how to sharpen them. I think that helps.
Yeah,
I think so. I think it does point out a lot of things. It's always funny, and I wonder if you have this same feeling as like I can use something that somebody else made, and it can probably have some mistakes in it, and I really won't notice it. But something that I made, I'm like, man, the little mistakes stick out like a sore thumb, and I can't even look at it anymore. Like I just had to like go set it in the bucket. You're like, this is a pile of crap.
I'm the same way.
It's a really hard. So it is. I think like once you do start making your things, and you are a self-critiquing person, it is amazing how many little nooks and crannies you find about how things work.
Yep.
It is. So another thing that we get a lot of questions on, I think you'd be a good person to explain it, is just like tool setup. You know, we get a lot of guys confused how to set up their tools to get good nail fit. Have you came up with a system that you go through how to get good nail fit, say for a competition or even just every day?
Just matching the punch to the nail and punching holes and checking them. You know, I mean, it's tedious to really get things set up. And once you get them set up, you're going to take that punch and that pritchel and that fuller and tape them together.
Yeah.
And you might have 3 or 4 of them set up before you go. It's funny. I used to, years ago, I went to Calgary, and I'd take like 4 pritchels with me. Right? The one year I went there, I used the same pritchel the whole time I was here. Never had to dress it once. I totally did not screw it up, which I would shop.
You want to go buy a lottery ticket after that one. That's a pretty good little run.
It's an amazing feat.
It's funny. I'll have a pritchel that'll last me for a long time at home. But then as soon as I go somewhere, that thing will snap right in front of everybody.
Yep.
You're like, yeah, this is good.
Yep.
This is good. That's one day in front of Jim Poor. I broke one of mine, and then I broke 3 of Gavin's in a row.
Oh, geez.
Well, all with Poor watching us right there. He's just like, what are you guys doing?
Pritchel the same nail too. It was like, God.
Yeah, it was all the same nail. Like I didn't even get that shoe punched at all.
I'll tell you a story about breaking something. Dan Hausman, we were in England in the individual, and Dan's tools didn't show up. They went elsewhere. So he goes, Bob, can I borrow your tools? I'm like, oh, God. If you ever watch Hausman swing a hammer, which, again, you guys probably have never seen it, but he can swing a hammer, right? So he had to make, I guess it was concave on the foot and a roadster specimen. So he's got my good hammer, right? Got all my tools. First hit on the roadster to bump up the toe, the head falls off the hammer because he hit the shaft on the edge of the... Never seen him do that. Never. And it went on the ground. And he looks at the handle, and he says, you got another one? I said, I have one more hammer. Don't break it.
Otherwise, we're both SOL.
Yeah.
My goodness.
It's the worst too when someone asks you under the gun, like during time, you're like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Say no to you? Like, right? It's like,
exactly.
Like you are my teammate. I guess I want you to do good. It's like, don't want you to fail too.
Yep.
I'm sure you. Do you have like one real good like English story from going over there?
English story from going over there. Well, Shayne and I can tell you some stories.
I heard a good one time, and I don't know. I think it was you guys with the tea set.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Jim Poor's got to tell that story, or Craig.
That's it. You were just the guy that was gonna have to buy it.
We felt terrible. We were all looking at the ground when Glenn came down.
A tea set?
And over the tea set because we broke the tea set, And then he told us it was in his family for hundreds of years, and we felt even worse. But he was pulling our leg. It was you should buy him down the corner store. We were all we were all red in the face and staring at the ground. It was terrible.
It is definitely like a weird thing that horseshoers do is that we all go to these random people's houses and enter their lives. Of like all of a sudden we're just hanging out with their family and all their things. Like it's just something else that not many other people do. It's not a very common thing.
Can you think of like any between of all the years that you were on the team, can you think of like which one was probably like the most beneficial to you, or can you remember like any year, like of all the years, like what, man, this year here I gained a lot from, or this one here was like the most fun? Or
I think the '93 team, we all gained a tremendous amount that year and had a great time. We all got along so well. I mean, that was the best year, '93.
and did you guys like win anything like in particular that year?
No,
No,
not really. We just did our
but
best
everybody
and
just
around the
gelled.
end.
Yeah, you guys had a great time then.
But yeah, we all got along really well, and we worked as a team. That's what it was all
Yes.
about.
I think that's probably like one of the hardest thing on those teams where you're not necessarily, you don't get to choose the team. You just get put on it. It's like it's not it attitudes and like vibes don't always mesh
Egos.
real great, you know.
There's a lot of teams that really don't work well together because of, a lot of things, but attitudes mostly, and
Yeah.
farriers are that way,
That's what I was just
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
say. It's like we're already a bunch that we want to work alone.
Yeah.
We're self-employed for a reason,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden we think we can be on a team with 3 other guys that are the same way. It's
Yeah.
like,
That's a little rough.
yeah, you put 4 male dogs together that are a little bit rough. They might fight a little bit. They might be a little bitey at times. Like it's what you expect.
Well,
That's how it goes.
Bob, you've been shoeing now for 50 years. You probably have a lot of people that you could probably like put on the Mount Rushmore. So I want to ask you, like, who would 4 people that you would be considered on your Mount Rushmore that have like influenced you throughout your life?
Well, the first one would be Bruce Daniels, for sure. I mean, if it wasn't for Bruce, I don't think I would be the farrier I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Because he introduced me to real forging. Okay. And the second one would be Dave Duckett,
Yeah.
because I learned a tremendous amount about feet and about conformation, about distortion from him, as well as forging. And Dave and I never really practiced together, but I watched him.
I kind of have a question. Had he discovered like the Duckett's dot at that time, or
Yeah, he had Duckett's dot and
previously?
Duckett's bridge.
Okay.
Yep.
So that would kind of happen before like you guys started kind of being
Well,
together.
it started before, but we worked on that quite a bit. Taking
Together.
radiographs of feet and trying to identify stuff. Yeah.
How long of a process did that kind of like take to figure out?
You have to ask Dave that.
I hear he's a hard guy to get a hold of.
He is a hard guy to get a hold of. I don't know if he would come on or not, but he might. You never know. It's always worth an
That'd be
ask.
cool.
He's got a lot going on over his years that he's been. All right. He taught at Hereford College. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
4 of his people that were at Hereford College at the time when he was there are Grant Moon, Billy Crothers, Carl Bettison.
So
There's another one, but they're all the top guys over there in England
yeah.
that went to Hereford when Dave was there. He also taught at the Irish National Stud at a horseshoeing school there.
That's a big
He brought me,
group right there.
Yeah.
That's where I got a lot of the information that I got. So
He's a name you hear a lot of.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
well, like I said, he's won every major competition in the world.
Yeah.
So
Not a lot of people can say that.
no, not at all.
No, and I think that it's cool too because Bruce Daniels as your number 1. That's another one you hear, and we hear quite a bit on here. It's a guy that he obviously impacted a ton of people.
Yes, he did. And
Who would be your number 3?
well, number 3 is a fellow who worked for me for a lot of years and covered my work when I was competing. And we actually won the draft horse class together in Albuquerque in '87, I believe. Just Scott Previtt. He's been shoeing horses in New Jersey since 1970 something. Came to work with, I think I met him in '79, came to work with me then. And we shot a lot of horses together over the years. And he covered my work when I was traveling.
Does he still shoe horses then?
Yes, he does.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
And he's actually moved a little bit closer. He's only about 30 minutes away.
Oh, that's
Because
cool.
he used to be about an hour away.
That's perfect. That's a pretty big help to have somebody actually help you out so you can travel and make those things possible.
That's part of the only reason I could was because I had him.
Yeah.
And the fourth one is actually the other guy who helped me out tremendously through all those years was Mike Hutter from up in Painted Post, New York.
What was the name of the town?
Painted Post, New York.
Painted Post.
Yep.
And it was Mike Yutter?
Mike Hutter, Hutter.
Hutter.
Yeah. He went to Cornell when Buster Coughlin was still.
Okay.
And he worked with me for years. He came down and helped me out and shot horses for me when I was gone. So.
Man, that's a good list.
He was actually he was alternate on the team in '88.
Oh yeah?
Yep.
Wow. So how do you find somebody that is like that you can trust when say you had like people fill in for you when you're away? How do you find somebody that you can trust to go nail on those shoes? Like,
well, these are all people who worked with me for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've had most of the people I've had work with me stay from minimally 4 years and as long as 8 or 10 years.
Okay.
So
is this kind of something that you establish in the beginning when you meet them? Like, what are your expectations like working for me? Or is it just kind of like, and you tell them that you should probably be here 4 years, or does it just kind of work out that way?
It just kind of worked out that way. Never really talked about it that much. It just happened.
Yeah.
But if you treat your help well and they're actually learning something when they're working with you, I think that helps a bunch. If they're bored or if they're not going to stick around very long.
Yeah. The thing that I kind of notice a lot is like the ego thing or whatever, where they start feeling like they're doing better than the person paying them, I guess. Like, and then they want to move on and be like, "Oh, I'm better than them." That's kind of a weird thing to kind of get over with, I would think.
That can happen.
Yeah.
I don't think I can't remember anybody that I felt that way about, but there were people that really started and worked for a couple of years and then decided they really didn't want to shoot horses.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard business. There's no doubt about that. I mean, dealing with people, dealing with bad horses sometimes, it's tough. I mean, a lot of the horses that we shoot, we can't trank if they're bad to work on because they're shallow. So
can't have it in the bloodstream.
It can get difficult to get underneath some of these things.
Yeah.
So
all wound up,
Shoeing for 50 years, how have you managed to keep your body? How do you feel physically? Like,
well, I had fits with my back from the time I was 30 to 40, but that's because I was competing.
yeah.
And I shot horses till midnight for 4 days straight, and then went and sat on an airplane. And then I went to get off the airplane, and I couldn't walk. Everything would tighten up. I mean, I had fits with my back when I was competing. And Jess had the same thing happen to her. Her back, the spasm back at the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Last year she was at finals when she won Category 3. And her back went to spasm during the shoeing, and she's been scared to death ever since.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. No, she's been having trouble, and it's more that, and I keep trying to tell her that, you've got to overcome it, because the more you worry about it, the more it settles in your lower back, and the more it hurts. You've got to stretch every day, and
you end up watching it, like you're like almost like you're like taking care of it, where it's like once you hurt it, because I had the same thing when we were doing the team deal. My back started screwing up on me quite a bit. And it's like when you get stuck in the bent over position, you can't move or breathe or anything like that. It is a very, and all of us are horseshoers. We feel very strong normally and very capable. And all of a sudden you feel very weak and out of control. It is a very
Duckett and I used to joke about it. My head is here, my ass is coming.
Yeah, it is. That's pretty spot on, because it is. Yeah. You're just
because that's how you're walking. Yeah, you're stuck in that position, and you can't stand up straight. But anyway, the more you worry about that, the worse it gets.
It is.
Yeah.
You have to kind of block it out, and stretching is huge. Stretching your hamstrings every day. I mean, that's all I do today, is I just stretch every morning and every night. I stretch twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you notice that, like, do you try to watch what you eat and everything quite a bit?
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah, I weigh 160 pounds.
Yeah.
I've never been heavy.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was having fits with my back from the time I was 30 to 40, I was actually gotten to the point where my back would go in spasm both sides at once for like 5 days, where I couldn't even sit up.
Yeah.
Never mind walk. But when I could walk or crawl, I would crawl out of bed and I would go to an osteopath, and he'd put a big TENS unit blanket on me and try to adjust me. But you know, when your back is spasm, you can't be adjusted. He'd give me xylocaine and cortisone shots on both sides of my back at once, and I would walk out of the place and I'd go straight to work. As long as I kept moving, I'd be okay. Like I would crawl in and walk. But you know, I have a bunch of scar tissue in my lower back from all those injections that I got.
Yep.
But at the time, I didn't know what to do, and I was a nervous wreck when I wasn't going to be able to shoot horses anymore. I went to a surgeon. You know, I had an MRI done. I had 4 herniated discs at the time. I shot quarter horses for a lot of years. I shot a bunch of halter horses. You know how they are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had all these herniated discs in my lower back, and begged him to do surgery on me. And he goes, Bob, I can't guarantee you're going to be any better. You might be worse. He goes, but what I am going to do is I'm going to send you to physical therapy for 30 days. And I'm like, come on. Like, you got to be more than
Just
that.
fix
He goes, no. He goes, I'm going to send you to physical therapy for 30 days. If you're not better, I promise I'll do surgery. I said, shake on it. So he shook on it. He sent me to physical therapy. I went there for a week. My back has never been in spasm again.
No kidding.
Yeah, because they taught me how to stretch.
And that sounds simple.
Nobody ever told me you needed to stretch.
Yeah. Like it's so like when you stretch in the morning, you just bend over and touch your toes for a bit and then head out the door? Or?
No, I do. All right. When I was having a lot of issues with my back, I was doing 300 crunches with my legs in different positions every morning. Okay? I mean, I was hanging upside down. I had an inversion table. I was hanging upside down. I was doing crunches hanging upside down. I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. All I do is right now is I get in the shower. You have to have a full-size shower. I turn the water as hot as I can stand it, so it's on my lower back and legs. And I do push-ups. I get my feet as far away from the wall as I can and do push-ups against the wall. I do 60 first time, then I wash out. And then I turn the heat back up on the shower, and I do another 40 before I get out. And I also do deep knee bends in between.
Okay.
And that's all I do.
Yeah, but you're loosened up. You know, it's like it sounds basic, but it's like, man, even when you're in middle school playing football, they make you stretch before you go tackle each other. It's like
funniest part is I've showed a bunch of guys, most of them were in Florida that I showed that were complaining about the back bothering them. I showed them what to do, and the next time they see me, go, Bob, think about you in the shower every morning. I said, that really helped. I'm like, okay, glad it helps.
Oh my goodness.
I think that's a good one right here. We'll end it there. You guys can think about Bob in the shower.
Now he's gonna have everybody thinking about you.
Yeah, that'll be the title of the episode.
It does work. It does work.
No, I'm with you, and that's I tell people all the time. It's like I wish I wouldn't. And I'm not very old yet. I wish I wouldn't have spent so much time thinking that yoga was for soft-handed people. You know, I wish I would have given it a try earlier in my career, and I probably would have better back and knees than I do right now.
Yeah, the problem I have right now are my wrists. My wrists are starting to give out. I'm full of arthritis, and I can't bend my hand. That's as far back as either hand goes.
Oh, jeez.
And my thumb is just, especially my right hand, is displaced and pushed out. So
yeah,
that actually, it was really bad last year. Well, a year ago last November is the first time I had it really bad. I thought I just had tendonitis because we had a really dry summer and our feet were hard, and I thought it was just from pulling the knife, because it was ran right down through here, right where your tendon runs. So I went, was at the vet clinic and had it x-rayed. So found out what was really wrong. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But I started taking diclofenac sodium, which was suggested to me by Scott Lampert down in Florida. And that's made a huge difference. Also, I slipped and fell on the ice, which I think fixed it.
It fixed it.
I landed flat right on my wrist and my elbow. when I slipped in the shower. And I mean, there were tears in my eyes. It hurt so bad.
Yeah.
But it actually got better after that. So I think I knocked something.
You knocked it back just right.
Yeah, maybe.
That's how that goes, man. I got a broken right hand that way. It's like every other time I re-break it, it feels better. It's those in-between ones that suck.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing is I just can't put my thumb on top of my hammer shaft anymore. It's just painful as can be. So I've actually learned to, be a little more accurate with just having my hand wrapped around the handle. But I use the handles now. Yeah.
That is interesting you say that, because I have the same thing. That I have just genetically bad wrists of like carpal tunnel and such. Like my dad has had it, my grandpa had it, and so I can't really swing very long with my hand on my thumb on top of my handle. It'll tear me up really bad. And I do use way bigger handles than everybody else. Like on the teams and stuff.
You just don't have any control without your thumb on the top. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. No, that is something that people always ask of, like, how do they know when to and which way to adjust their hammer handles. And I just, wherever feels comfortable for you, you have to kind of go back and forth, but it's like you have to decide if you can keep your thumb on top or not. Like, it's going to be a little bit of the deciding factor.
Yeah. I don't even think about it anymore. I don't put my thumb on top.
Yeah, it's just normal now.
No option. Yeah.
Just normal.
Yep.
Well, man, Bob, I appreciate a whole bunch you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us and have everybody find a little bit more out about you.
It's been fun.
I'm glad we were able to get it done finally. Sit down with you.
Yeah, make it happen.
Yeah, it went on for a little while. Trying, but
you're a busy man to track down, Bob.
It gets a little crazy in the wintertime with traveling. So.
Man, it's the hardest hurdle about doing with horseshoers. Like, you want to talk to the busy horseshoers. The problem is they're busy.
It's the same thing with articles, like in the Farriers Journal. The guys that are really worth, looking at their article don't have time to write it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you get the people that have plenty of time, but the articles aren't that great.
Nope. Yeah, and it just so happens the ghostwriters in our trade aren't very good either. Like, they don't do a very good job doing the communication barrier there. It doesn't work out. Awesome. Well, Bob, we'll have to have you back on with some of the other guys from your teams and stuff. And that
would be a blast.
It'd be a good one.
Yeah, we all need to get together again. It's been too long.
Yeah.
That would be a podcast episode for the books. Yeah, it would. The stories.
Yeah, we should all get together at gyms. That'd be a lot of fun.
I'm up to go to gyms whenever, any excuse to go there, I'm up for it. Like, it's a good time.
Likewise.
Yeah.
We'll have to bother them. We'll make it happen. Well, Thanks, Bob, and thanks, everybody, for tuning in and listening. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
Yes, sir.